folks, this is Donna, and I'm in my sewing room, and I decided to see if I could help you guys make a mask for the COVID-19. I know it won't protect you from catching the virus, but it will make it so that if you should be asymptomatic, you won't give it to anybody accidentally. And it's recommended that we wear these. It's a very simple make. You can do it in a short amount of time. We're going to try to take you through the steps. Step 1 is to download the pattern. You can download this particular pattern from Tiana's Closet. I'll put the link below. It comes with an adult female size, a child size, and an adult male. Just choose some material. As you can see, I've got several scraps here, different colors, and I like to use a broadcloth on the outside and something a little softer on the inside, like a t-shirt type material. So I'm just going to choose this pink and then a soft, it's an old t-shirt for the inside. And then to keep it nice and stiff, I'll put a little chunk of an old sheet in the middle. That makes it so it has a nice stability to it. Next up, you're going to need a little patience. Since you're using scraps, you first want to cut out the pattern. Only time you get to use your sewing scissors on paper. Then pin it down. On the broadcloth, it's an easy pin. It doesn't roll or anything on you. Once you have it pinned, go ahead and cut it. Now this pattern allows for about 1/4 of an inch of seam allowance, so you'll want to make sure that you cut at that outer edge so that you leave yourself some room to sew. For materials that ravel really bad, you want to leave yourself a bigger seam allowance. Just add that on with a marker. All right, now I've cut the outer layer. Let's do our nice soft lining. I don't even take it off of the other one. I just move it to here, pin it down. Sometimes I try to find which way it's going to stretch, but for most of these, there are just so many loose scraps, I'm just happy to get one out of it that doesn't have a hole or something like that. Then you pin that down, you cut it again. And then for the third one, this is just a piece of old sheet. Now, this mask won't protect you from getting the virus, but the concept is it will protect you from giving the virus should you accidentally be asymptomatic and not know it. And again, I've got my inner layer right here already, and then I have my outer layer right here already. The pattern's the same, pinning it down, and I'm going to pin it to this old sheet material. Will give me a nice extra filtering layer. And the good part about this is everything that you do does not have to be absolutely exact and precise. Sometimes when you sew, everything's got to be perfect. With this mask, you've got a lot of leeway for mistakes. All right, so all the pieces are cut out. Let's move on into the sewing machine. Okay, so here we are at the sewing machine. First thing you have to do is pull the pins. And then let's start sewing the layers together. Let's start with this outer layer. And we're going to make it so that the pretty sides are together. Put it just like this. And then it's a good idea to stick a pin or two in. If you're able to hold it nice and tight, you don't need to worry about it. But it just kind of helps you keep from slipping. Now we're going to want about a 1/4 inch seam allowance. So we put it there. I'm using kind of a light pink thread because it matches most of it. And stitch it down. Pulling the pins, of course, as you go. There you go. It's your first one. Now you trim off your threads as you go because there's a lot of threads on this one. And if I'm not mistaken, we can open this up and you can see that it looks like this already. All right, now comes the next section. This part's all together. We need to take this white stabilizing fabric, put it on the outside of this nice soft t-shirt material that we're going to put on the inside. And you put the two lining ones on the inside and this guy on the outside. All right, a couple of pins, make sure we keep it sort of in place. And stitch away. All right, and now the only tricky part. Open this up, and it looks like this. Fold it inside out. And then take this one, make sure you have the top up, match these two seams together. Right like that. And put a pin in there. Then find that place with a little indent. Make sure they all line up. Put a pin in there. And bring her on down to the edge. Put a pin in there. Now you can sew that chunk or you can pin the other side. I like to pin both sides first. All right, then you start here. Make sure you're catching all three layers. Stitch right around it. Leaving the same seam allowance. With my machine, I have to take the pins out. Some of the better machines, it goes right over them. My machine bends the needle every time. Now you may ask, do we have to pin it? Only if you want it to go together like you want it to. Now, this isn't a step that you would do, but I want to show you what happens. Now when we flip this up like this, you can see that seam is all covered up and that white's going to be on the inside. And it'll all be covered up when we put it together. But before we can do that, we have to sew the other side. And then we'll hide all the ugliness, all the rough edges, all the loose seams. Again, fit that in there nice and tight. Put this guy here, right at the middle. On this one, there's no bumps, so you just have to make it go straight. On the bottom side, that's just straight. So you can usually get by with just a couple sizes. So make sure you're catching all three of them. All right. There we go. All the seams are done. Trim some threads off. Sometimes if your seams are not close enough, that's a good time to do that. Then you go between here, not here, but between here and the lining that you want, the soft lining. You're going to turn it inside out now. All right, and that makes a pretty nice looking little mask, just like that. I could wear it like this, or I can put it on this way. So it's reversible. Yes, I can breathe through it, so I don't have too much in there. All right, just because I like to make it a little bit more stable, I like to tag down these seams. And again, match it up with those two together. Put a pin in it. Go to the center here. Making sure those two seams are stacked on top of each other. Throw a pin in it. And then come down here. You have to adjust it, make sure everything fits. And then you put a pin in it. Right? And flip it and go back the other way. It's always nice to see how crooked or straight you went. In my case, it was crooked. And that gives it a nice stability. It keeps everything right together in place. And if you match your thread up with the right color, you don't even see it. Now, it might not be exactly perfect, but it will certainly work. All right, the next part is my favorite. We're getting towards the end. So I take these ends and I push them in about that far. Just tuck them in. Do the same thing on this side. Just tuck them in. Then I fold it exactly in half, and I see how close I have it to being symmetrical. And when I have it close enough, I put a pin in it. For the elastic, deciding how long you want the elastic, for me, was the toughest part. So I just kind of eyeballed it and did, I'm going to want about that much elastic. So I just cut it off here. Elastic is one of the few things that I don't have extra scraps around, so I have to be kind of careful. Then I mark them right here at about, half an inch. And I do it on both ends. Then I take this end and I stick it in there just up to where you can see the mark. I pull my pin out, put it on the sewing machine, and I stitch it down. Then I follow it around, I stick it up here into the required mark, and I stitch it down. Okay, and that's one side. Now I put it in on the other side and stitch it down. And I bring it around this way. Get it to where it goes. Now is a good time to try it out. Keeping in mind that you haven't finished it. And so you haven't sewn those on very good. Well, that fits nice and tight. That feels pretty good, actually. Before you give this to someone else, then, you realize why I always wash them. All right, now, we still have a rough edge here and a place that's empty and in the way. So we have to go around and put some, I don't know, you could call it decorative stitching, but it's mostly just to help hold it together. I like to put an extra layer of stitches on just because I know that a lot of times kids are using these and kids can be hard on things. So if you double the stitch, it kind of doubles the chances of them losing it. First thing I'm going to do is make sure these elastics are in here better. So I'm going to go across it like this, hit the reverse, and then do it again. And then since I have children, I'll do it a third time. And just go right up there on the edge. Now that seam is finished. And then again, here's one of these spots, so I'll do it at least 3 times. And then I'm going to turn it down around the corner, holding it nice and getting everything all together so it just makes a nice finishing seam so it doesn't poof up in funny spots later. Helping hold everything in place and make a nice finished look. Because I know we're all worried about being stylish with our masks. And again, there's one of these places where the elastic attaches, so you just go over it multiple times. Backs up, do it again, go on down. It's our last place to attach the elastic. Trim off all the extra little hairs, and you now have one COVID-19 help protect your neighbor's masks.